All right, here we go again. Buckle up. So essentially, what they're finding in these investigations is actually proof of everything that I said. So again, they'll treat it how they're going to treat it. And, if they arrest this person or arrest that person, it's not, where I'm at with it. It's just hopefully they fix it. So what is it really? What are we actually seeing? Like Nick, what's his name? Nick, the guy, the influencer that's investigating all the fraud. So what is he, today he released information about, appeared to be an ethnic community in California, hospice fraud. Or I may have released it before, but I saw it today. So what are we actually seeing? We're seeing a ruling entity. That entity runs those locations. If Nick lived there long enough unprotected, they would visit Rick. They try to set him up, or Nick. They try to set him up. If they had dirty cops and he wasn't connected, the cops would come in and try to intimidate him. So they run those communities. That's what I was speaking about, Santa Fe, the other places. I spoke about the charity mafias. That's who they are. They're a charity mafia. And if the charity mafia is around, a lot of times dirty cops are around. So that's what he's finding. He's finding the various. We had no doubt a Somali charity mafia. If I moved to Minnesota and moved into that community, they would begin harassing me right away. Because somebody that was corrupt somewhere else would call them and say, "Hey, this guy, he's not part of our thing." And then they would reveal themselves. That's how bad the corruption was, because they didn't even worry about revealing themselves. So Oklahoma City was another location that I spoke about, where the narcos were running the city. And obviously, that's what Cash Patel found. Now the question is whether it's still the narcos, I think, but have you been able to get anywhere with that catalytic converter thing? I think somebody was on the take on that one. They say it's a lot of money. I can't believe it's all that much money, but maybe it is. Yeah, it seemed like they were protected. The revolving door isn't always, just liberal policy. They use that to let people, get people out of jail that are part of their criminal enterprise, and then not charge them. And again, politicians, they'll get bribes from that. As soon as they make that phone call, all of a sudden some money rolls in. It might be in the form of donations from several, could be 40 people. Like all those Somali people, they'll donate to certain places. All the people in Santa Fe were the same way, charity mafias. And again, I'm sure there's some fraud there. Theirs is, I think, the rehabs. They don't really want people off of drugs. They just want to make the federal funds to pretend that they're trying to get people well. So again, when we get to the next level of it, which would be, I don't remember that guy's name. I just remember his father was a lieutenant. I don't even remember what police department, but he was a cop. With the law enforcement officer arrested in Oklahoma City for sex crimes against people he pulled over. Daniel Holtzclaw. And his father was a lieutenant in a police department that was anti-narco. Well, there's something else going on. Oklahoma trooper. Okay, so this should be evidence. Let's see first. Okay, so I'll look at that later. All right, so who was Daniel Holtzclaw's father, Lieutenant Police Department? Eric Holtzclaw. Eric Holtzclaw, if you study the era before Daniel Holtzclaw's alleged descent into crime, sexual crime, you'll find that his father was part of a police department that was very different from police departments that were on the take. They had what I believe was a stellar record of keeping the narcos under control. I didn't find that in Oklahoma City. The problem with it is we allowed spycraft and psychological manipulation and psychological warfare techniques, even within the police department, to increase and be developed and leaked out of CIA and other places, but we never developed a system to make sure that it wasn't abused, number one. And again, it involves PIs and PIs working for narcos and sex traffickers and all sorts of stuff. So we didn't develop the system to check and balance it, which is very important. But what do you do when they affect a person and they commit a felony? Some cases, they don't get prosecuted. But nobody ever talks about it at the level they need to talk about it. So Daniel Holtzclaw, again, I went back and forth seeing if I could get some play there, see if I get some reaction as to whether he didn't do it or he did it and he was operating. There's no doubt that the spycraft system to operate Daniel Holtzclaw in the sex crime, to get back at his father for arresting the narcos, and again, his police department that he worked with and for. If you want to get back at him, you go after the son. That's kind of a mobster thing. So the system to turn him into a sex criminal is there. Sometimes law enforcement investigating like that they're there. Because then they become heroes of law enforcement and there's no crime that they can't solve because these people are actually creating the majority of the big crimes. And you're the big investigator and you go in there and they lead you to him or to her. So these are the issues that we're confronted with. What do you do? Now we have another trooper apparently in 2025 that was charged with something. A sex crime on a traffic stop. And again, the idea isn't necessarily that they didn't do it, but they were not in the right mind by the work of whoever it is. And again, GHB. Coat the officer's steering wheel and door handles with GHB. They look for DNA. They look for GHB. See, that's the problem with the system. And there is even there's some questions about the DNA in that particular case. As well as, and again, it's difficult in those cases when you have indigent people and people that are prostitutes and people that are drug users as victims because they're not the best witnesses in court. Well, there's a deep state system in Oklahoma running alongside everything else. And if you're not attacked by it, that's one of the also one of the methods. Right? They'll attack some people to extort them and then pay them and give them big life. Other people, if you're not attacked by it, well, that's crazy. Right. Again, today, I don't know if people could make that, or come to that conclusion that it's crazy to say that corruption could be at that level. Liberal, Democrat, Republican, conservative, whatever. So what it really is these are organized crime and racketeering entities. And they own these communities along with the dirty cops and the dirty politicians. And for some reason, they killed Jonathan Nichols. I don't know the truth of his life. I don't know if he was, at that point, a real straight arrow and not allowing cannabis in or not. I tested it. Kind of inconclusive. And kind of a warning, if you don't let the cannabis in, you'll be next. So again, they like to put into the mind that everything I did failed. Everything I did succeeded. It just didn't succeed enough to get my life back up. So Nick Shorter, I guess his name is something like that. Nick, whatever. What he's finding is these organized crime entities. Now, he doesn't live in those communities, and he's got backers, and he's got money, so he's able to get around it. But what he's finding is entities that are actually organized crime and racketeering. Now, the latest one looks the best because he found that location. It's like Fort Corruption. It's like a hacienda there, Fort Corruption. Right. And they're all living that big life, man. They ride around. They go to Santa Fe. Everywhere I live, they were there. The Bigs, Kansas, Overland Park, the Bigs. Right. Yeah, it's big to be a crook nowadays. So that was interesting that Kash Patel said that it used to take 2 years to bring somebody on. Now it takes 90 days. Now they'll try to put egg on your face and try to mess somebody up that you hired, make them commit a crime by using that psychological methods I speak about. So you need to speak to your people about, OPSEC and counter spycraft. It's not the old days of the old OPSEC and the old counter spy stuff. It's big. I mean, these are major. They're implanted everywhere. So you could live in a city and get no way and get beat down every day like I did, and not realize what's going on. I think it was bad luck, quote unquote. That's what they want everybody to believe, or God getting you. That's one thing Hachem wanted to make sure that I knew that he wasn't getting me. That it was these other things. So in 90 days, it would be very difficult to indoctrinate somebody. So what happens is they wait, the way they play it, because I saw enough of it, because what they're trying to do is get me to commit a crime, to make me believe I'm the CIA and go do a crime and you're covered by CIA. That's what they tried in my life. But other people say, we're the CIA and you've been selected for this job. And some of them are CIA. You've been selected for the FBI job, they're the task force. And then, over the next couple of years, we're going to indoctrinate you to our system, but not say it that way. So while they're waiting to come on, as soon as somebody gives them the thumbs up, then the gal gets to come on to the task force. But that's after they're indoctrinated. That's why you're finding all the narcotics and everything else. Well, because you're not, I guess you're not taking the money. Right. But they're ruling those communities, which means, like I said, they're in the background there. And the immigrants don't even have a free life. So they, it's a bad system all the way around. We need to start over, and that's what we're trying to do. But they're slowing down the deportations because they don't want people to see that it's successful to deport. And then all of a sudden we bring the other people in. Now the economy is another thing. You have to understand, because organized crime and racketeering was so widespread, you can't read the economy while we're fixing it. It doesn't make any sense. I don't believe everything we read, either one side or the other. Just a fact of life, like Rabbi Maimon had said. Maimon. They're if they're going to lie with their mouth, they're going to lie with their pen. Vice versa, versa, vice. So you have to understand, this no growth is not anything until this all plays out. Well, because we had a whole part of our nation, very successful part of our nation, but the money didn't stay here. And it wasn't just Venmo'd and sent legitimate. Remember, police officers sitting down, federal officers and others sitting down by the border, pulling people over, because what are they doing? They're taking, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 down to Mexico. So it's not only what we see in legal money leaving the United States, and Trump brought that up, that he wanted to tax that. There's illegal money. So it's not united. So what's actually happening is Mexico, Honduras, Venezuela, and Colombia and all these places, they got these enclaves that they own, and they rule as organized crime and racketeering bosses that are selling the narcotics, the sex trafficking. And it's only benefiting the foreign nation. In other words, parts of the United States, and these people know it down there, is owned by Mexico, it's owned by Venezuela. What you saw and they may have already owned it, because when I was down there, it was very unfriendly. Or over there, what's it called again, Colorado? Aurora. They may have owned, you saw their takeover of Aurora, Colorado. They were going to replace law enforcement. Anybody in law enforcement that doesn't want to get harassed or lose their job, they have to work for the corruption. They're definitely corrupt there. So if the economy shrinks, well, it could be Venezuela in the United States, Mexico in the United States, Honduras in the United States. It's not U.S. citizens and the nation getting wealthy. In fact, where's all the money going that we actually are collecting in taxes? Back to the schmucks. And schmucks, because they're going to go to hell for it. Part of the deep state, you're going to hell of you. It's called the beast. Doesn't mean you're a sinner. It means you're who I say is part of that devilish thing. Causing other people to fall by the use of witchcraft. There's no doubt that's what they're using. Witchcraft and devilry. So the economy, you can't read it. Now, people can read it, like people in Minnesota. They can read it. 10 million a month or something they were hauling. Right. Because if you're an average American, the economy really didn't change much for you. Although over time, you should have the real jobs. There's also an expense. These organized crime and racketeering organizations are causing poor health in addicted people. So cash can tell you that not as many are dying from overdoses, but we also have Health and Human Services, and we also have the Surgeon General, And what we should see if we are successful at this, an increase in health and less money going out the door to those it's not only addiction services, like they say, oh, this many people died of overdose, but how many people died of poor health from narcotics? Probably twice as many. And that costs us as a nation. So again, there's a lot to adjust before we can read the economy. It's going to shrink. But it isn't anything that was benefiting the U.S. citizens or the nations, because what this economy that you see of all this money flowing was causing poor health, was causing the need for rehab, all these programs. Now, people will use drugs, but not like they're using it now. As blessed by the narco states and the racketeering criminal enterprises in the United States, which are really spycraft. So no growth doesn't mean nothing. Even if there's a recession, it doesn't mean nothing. Because what we're doing is we're taking the cancer of these criminals out of the United States. So we're going to lean up, but we should also improve. And then eventually, like you see, we're going to start issuing visas for the good people that want to come here and have them waiting. So again, the economy is impossible to read right now. I mean, a lot of that money was fraud money, but what is it? It's tax money. So again, it's going to take a while before we can read stuff. Well, I got to go for a minute here. Stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God.